that's what I'm hoping to show during all of this. So I'll tell you this because I haven't posted this yet. I don't know when you're going to post any of this.
So we are 20 something days from running the New York City Marathon, which is crazy. But one thing that I'm most excited for is meeting the team that I'm going to be running with. For those of you who don't know, Beyond Type 1 is a type 1 diabetes nonprofit focused on diabetes education and research and support. And they're wonderful, and they put together a team of type 1 diabetics and caretakers of type 1s, and we're all running the New York City Marathon. Now, the coolest thing about this is that we all have our different stories, different times in life when we were diagnosed, how we've handled it, the things we've done since. And for how different we all are, in this one moment, we're going to all be running a marathon. Something that's impressive for anybody, let alone type 1 diabetics. And so, as I've been training and preparing and watching content online, the one thing that I wish I had more of was experiences and information from the people on the team. Like, I want to hear more about them. I want to hear their stories. I want to understand what they're going through, what they've been through, how they're looking at this marathon. And so I wanted to interview them. And I figured, why not start with someone who I've looked up to for a long time, and one of the people that I first found online when I was diagnosed, and that's Neil Greathouse. Or you probably might know him as the Beatus. Those are his tags on social. And I was lucky enough to get him on this kind of podcast style format, and we had an incredible conversation. And so I'm excited to share this with you all. We talk about his experience with being diagnosed, how he's pivoted that into something where he can bring value to other type 1 diabetics, the things he's learned, how he's preparing for this marathon, what he's learned preparing for this marathon. Any of you who are type 1 diabetics or caretakers of type 1s, I promise there's a ton of value in here. And I'm just so excited to share it with you. So please enjoy. And also don't forget that this marathon is a fundraiser for type 1. And we're trying to raise money for diabetes research and education. And so I'll drop a link below to help support Neil in his fundraising. And he's absolutely incredible. So please consider donating to him and supporting this marathon. But with that, enjoy. All right. I've been looking forward to this day for a long time. We have the content connoisseur, the type 1 advocate, the runner, the director, Neil, the Greathouse here.
Man.
How's that for an introduction?
You've added runner in there, which I didn't think would ever happen ever. And the standing joke right now is this going to be your whole personality? Like, is this going to be everything that you do for? No, I promise, no. But I have been enjoying it, so I'll take it. If you're going to say runner, I'll just take it.
Take the title and run with it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, might as well,
Unintended.
might as well.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I've seriously been so excited. You're such a positive influence in the space on social, and I'm excited to meet you in real life. But I'm trying not to be too starstruck here. But
No, no. You know what's crazy too is like you're gonna get in that moment, you're gonna realize there are 50 other people that you're like, oh my gosh, I want to meet. I want to meet that person. I want to hear their story. I want to learn more about them because they've all got their own stories of how they got here and all this stuff. They're all doing something, even if it's just for their own family or even if it's just for the small community that they come from, whatever. It's going to be, it's going to be incredible just to get in that room with all these other runners and just, people that are affected by type 1. That's a special group of people. And there's a common thread that kind of binds all of us together. And those moments are rare. I was just in a room last Saturday with somebody who's had type 1 for 30 years. And he's never been in a room full of people who have type 1 before. He's like, this is so crazy. I've never done this before. So yeah, it's going to be a fantastic time just getting to know everybody.
I am so excited. And like you mentioned, just And again, I live in a small town. I rarely meet other type ones, and so
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Being in a room with that many
Yep.
and the stories that are there, it's going to
Yeah.
be so powerful. And
Yeah. Yeah.
starting this off, I'd love to start with your story. I would love to get more deep into the marathon and the training and how that's going with type 1. And for anyone listening, both Neil and I are on the Beyond Type Run team running
Yeah.
the TCS 2024 New York City Marathon. And I don't know if either of us will ever run again after this.
I've already
But
signed up. I've signed up for not a full, but I signed up for a half in March
oh,
just
so
to
you're
keep
hooked.
myself honest.
You're hooked now.
Well, you know what? So I do better when I know I have a goal that is out there in front of me because then it keeps my habits lined up. If I don't have
Oh,
that, I, you might next time you see me, I'd be, 800 pounds and just, I'm just just on an all chips diet, just nothing but tortilla chips.
it's hard to believe, but I love it. I love the imagery there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so let's give everyone who doesn't know the brief elevator pitch
sure.
of your story, when you were diagnosed, what point of life you were at when that happened, who you are, what you like to do. Give
Yeah.
us the brief rundown, and then
Okay.
we'll tackle the
See if I
marathon.
can do this. I'll do this in 60 seconds. How about that?
All
So
right.
I was diagnosed when I was in the Air Force. I was in the middle of flight training. It had been my lifelong goal to be in military aviation and eventually, it's going to sound hilarious, eventually move over towards NASA, but that never happened. So there is no, type 1 diabetes history in my family. So my pancreas shut down in the middle of flight training. I was incredibly sick. It derailed my entire career. I went in the hospital. My blood sugar was 1800 and I was extremely sick. Like just because I had pushed, something was physically wrong with me, and I pushed it for another 3 months because I didn't want to wash out of the program that we were in, and so I pushed it way further than what I should have. So very, very sick. Went back to school, computer technology and creative writing, and that eventually led its way over to a lot of script writing, screenplays, and then eventually filmmaking. And so I've had the incredible opportunity to take something that greatly affected my life and derailed, or at least I thought derailed, but maybe changed the course of what I do in life. And now I can focus and aim this creative ability to be able to capture stories towards helping people with type 1. So, uh, I eventually started making some short films. Type 1 Day One, a few other things got involved with Beyond Type 1, and then had the opportunity to make the Bike Beyond documentary. So following 21 cyclists who rode across the United States. It took 72 days to film it, and we released it on World Diabetes Day, and it won like best feature film at the LA Film Festival. It did incredibly well, but it was also COVID and all those other things were happening. But while we were making it, I wished I was on the bike.
Mm.
It's like you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could actually be out there doing it. My life has typically been on this side of the camera. And so last year, we filmed five different runners who ran the New York City Marathon that were wearing a tandem pump. So we documented their race, and then at the very end, Annie Cooper, who was wearing the tandem Mobi, she's the first person to run or race with it, and she grabbed the camera crew and pulled me aside at the after party, and she she put me on blast in front of everybody. She said, "Would you consider running it?" I said, "Well, I've definitely been thinking about it." She goes, "Well, I'm challenging you to run next year." And that's all I needed. Like I was already on the edge. I was
Yeah.
already thinking about it. Like, is this even something I would do? And so I did. I started training March 1st, but you don't put in an application even until like May, and we didn't find out until like maybe June that we made it in. So I'm running for 3 months, 3 days a week, hoping that my name would actually get picked to be on the Beyond Type Run team. So that's how I got here. But along the way, I work with Risley Health. I've done a bunch of work for a lot of other companies, but Risley is board certified health and wellness coaches, specifically helping people with type 1, because type 1 diabetes is more than a math problem to be solved, and the system, the way it's all set up with endocrinologists and doctors having about, on average, 15 minutes to spend with somebody in a room twice a year. If you're lucky, that's the national average. People go about twice a year to see an endo. That's just not enough time. So it's if it's more than a math problem, it's an experience to be managed. So we help a lot of people and coach them through months at a time, even a year or more, of how do you actually live with this thing? How do you navigate it? How do you deal with it? Because that's what's important. It's such a daily disease. It's such a thing that you have to deal with on the hour, on the minute. Going to the doctor twice or three times a year is not going to cut it. And so I ended up writing a book called Type 1 Diabetes One Day at a Time. It's just that. It's like 90 days of just kind of walking you through it. That's the reason why I even got into this. This is way longer than 90 seconds, Brian. I just realized that partway through here. I'm like, oh, we blew way past that.
It was a long elevator ride. We were
Yeah.
going
So that's how we got here.
fantastic. And what a cool, I mean, opportunity to have something so impactful in your life and then go around and turn it into something that can be of value.
Yeah.
Was that initially the case or
Oh no, no.
oh, I struck a nerve there.
No, not at all. Because my diagnosis hit, and I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know what type 1 diabetes. They didn't even explain it to me in the doctor's office. What I mean? And especially in a military hospital. Good luck.
Right.
So no, I went through 7 years of just complete denial and just out there winging it. Shooting from the hip. And in that time period, I got married. You're thinking about starting a family or whatever, and you can see the stress and pressure it puts on your wife, puts
Yeah.
on people, people that care about you, people that work with you, all of it. And so eventually I snapped out of it, but it took a while. It took a while. And I think everybody's journey to that is different. Some people immediately gravitate towards it. I did not. Slow starter, Brian, that was me.
Well, do you think that that period of time, all that denial and all those years, that's got to give you way more perspective to better understand a lot of type ones who go through that.
Yeah. Like it brings me back to some of the why. Like, why was I acting like it? Because at some point early on, you feel like you're bulletproof. Like, this
Right.
isn't really going to hurt me. And there's a bit of, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna count anything. I can
Right.
get through this, and you can only do that for so long. So yeah, there's a lot more perspective, and really, I would just say empathy for people that are in it, because I've been in it, and I know how tricky it can be for sure.
Right. All right. So let's flip this into marathon. You mentioned that kind of I'll show you attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
Denial stage. How is that being pulled in now that you're involved in activities that, I mean, at your diagnosis or in the years following? I don't know if you ever thought about anything as crazy as running a marathon, but how does that same mindset impact you now of like, I'll prove that we can do this. Like
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Yeah. Well, that word is the key. So I live by, it's sitting up here on my board. It's on everything that I have. I think about it every single day. I try and live by this motto: is show, don't tell.
Hmm.
It Like, my doctor was like, you can go do anything. Your life won't be all that. You can still do the things that you're dreaming of or whatever. But I'm like, I couldn't see anybody else doing it. I couldn't, the visual wasn't there. I don't know that I believed that I actually could until you start spotting other people that are doing it. That's really what I've tried to do, is just show people, social media, through, films, through the book or whatever, is you can do it. It's not as easy, or it's not even, it's not as easy. It's not as simple as it is for other people. You know this. You're out there running. You ran a marathon last year. The the amount of extra work that we have to do that's what I'm hoping to show during all of this. So I'll tell you this because I haven't posted this yet. I don't know when you're going to post any of this, but I put one of my Dexcoms on a friend of mine who is he's a sub 3 hour marathoner. He's
Okay.
incredible. He
Right.
does not have type 1. And he is eating the gels and doing all the I mean, he is extremely talented. He is such a good runner. And I put it on him. We're on day 7 right now to see what his blood sugar does while he's out running 21 miles versus what it does on mine. And those are two very different stories. It's just amazing what the human body can do. And when our body doesn't do that, what we have to pick up and do on our own, it's just this mental challenge and struggle that eventually is physical, or really starts physical, then turns into mental. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just show people, yes, you can do it. Here's what I've learned along the way. And it's not trial and error, because I don't view it that way. I view it as an experiment, because if you're just experimenting, there is no error. It's just part of the experiment. I didn't fail on this one. We just need to keep working at it. So I look at it as an experiment, and I've learned a lot more about my own body, how I respond to it, but hopefully in showing that for the last few months, like of just constant posting running videos. I'm not even like, I wouldn't even watch somebody else's running videos when I'm out here posting, because I'm just trying to show people like you can do it. It is difficult, but nobody remembers easy.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers easy. So hopefully what we're doing, you, me, the rest of this team, what we're doing is memorable, and it inspires somebody else to believe that they can do it.
Absolutely. Well, this lines up really well because I was doing kind of some deep dives on you. And you've mentioned I love how many quotes you're able to pick up. And you mentioned one of your favorites is from James Clear,
Hmm.
who said, "Goals are for people who care about winning once. Healthy habits are for people who care about winning repeatedly."
Yeah.
And so I like how you touched on like the consistency required for marathon training is one thing, and that it takes weekly mileage and gels and fuel and
Yep.
hydration. And then there's this constant maintenance of our type 1 that we also have to pick up. And it's
Yep.
almost like we're stacking. I mean, you could look at it one of two ways. We're stacking the odds in our favor of we have to pick up habits or else we're never going to
No,
succeed.
no chance. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have no chance.
And so
Right.
how have you seen, I mean, you've got the goal. There's the marathon, there's the half after that. How are how are the habits coming along, and what have you seen in terms of like new habits that you've had to pick up in addition to already dialing in a type 1 maintenance?
Yeah. The the process is just as much fun as the thing that we're aiming towards, and learning to love the process is what has changed a little bit for me. I am a very spontaneous person. Love to just, tell my wife, "Hey, this weekend we're going to go do this," whatever. And that she's a planner. This has forced me to be a better planner. But in planning and in preparation, that's where you build some of that confidence. Like the anxiety that I would have if I hadn't been running since March, as we get closer to the marathon, would just hit an all-time high, because I wouldn't feel ready for it. So preparation when it comes to type 1, yes, it's going to throw you curveballs. Like you're there's the laundry list of things that could go wrong, but just prepare what you can, and you just roll with what you can't control, but don't worry about those things. All of the extra in between stuff of improving over time and paying better attention to what my body is doing. That if I could really walk away from this whole thing, I'm way more attentive to how I'm reacting and responding to things, because I'm tracking it. I'm writing it down. I'm not obsessing about it, but
Mm.
just paying way more attention, and then I can make small minor adjustments instead of, oh my gosh, we got to scrap the whole thing and start over. It's just small adjustments along the way. That's one of the biggest advantages to building some of those habits. Like I'm not afraid of carbs. Not that I was before, but they're always there's like a you know like you go to a Mexican restaurant and there's chips or whatever. You're like, okay, should I? Shouldn't I? I'm not afraid of those anymore because I know how my body's going to respond. But what you and I are doing, we have to fuel. Carbs are the only real way to do that, but we also have to stay hydrated. We have to keep the electrolytes in. We have to keep rest in. We have to keep some stretching in. We have to keep the training going. All those things are just habits that if you can just focus those over towards what you're doing with type 1, it correlates.
I love that. And I do think there are probably far too many similarities between training and running this far of a distance
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the mental shift that you have to have with every day of staying on top of type 1 and the
Yeah.
maintenance that it requires
Yep.
and so I it's been interesting for me to watch a lot of our other teammates post and share all this cool content because I mean it is inspiring. And I remember seeing everybody last year and I was like, man, I want to do this so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just seeing the way that they approached it and I mean, I saw people getting frustrated with lows on the runs and I'm like, oh, like I've been there, like
Yeah. Yeah.
such a thing. And so
It's real.
I appreciate that reminder that it's about controlling what we can control and building those habits that will fuel
Yeah.
the success.
Yeah. Martin Hughes ran last year.
Mhm.
And we got to document his, but also I feel like I've got so many friendships out of that race last year. And Martin and I will text constantly. And he lives up in the Pacific Northwest. And I think he's done, I don't want to over exaggerate, but I think he's probably done 30 marathons in 30 different states. He's trying to do 50 in all 50 and living with type 1. And he's like, listen, man, just run your race, do your thing. And I kept asking him, I said, um, have you ever thought about doing a half marathon? I was like, have you ever thought of scaling back? And he said something that he's right. He said, a half marathon is not enough of a challenge for me. I know that I could kind of slack off in the disciplines that I have to keep myself accountable to, but I can't do that with a full. And the full marathon, it makes me stay on track, or else I'm off the rails. And I realized that I was like, oh, he's right because well, we just ran, in the training program, we're way past half marathon ranges right now. Like
Yeah.
we're way past. And I joked around my wife. I said, I wouldn't give right now to just be running a half marathon because that's come and gone. That's like not that big of a deal anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, I could always improve. I could speed up. I could do all that, but I think it's having something that is big enough in front of you that kind of scares you a little bit and makes you stay on the small habits on a daily basis. I'm learning a lot watching from the rest of the team too, the things they're dealing with, how they overcame it, what are they learning from it. It's just a massive learning experience.
Amen. And what a
Yeah,
cool, like I am so grateful that this is an event that's put on, like that a nonprofit for type 1 is so behind an activity that
yeah.
many endos would probably be like, no, this is dangerous.
Oh yeah, don't
They're
do
out
that.
here like, you got
Well, yeah. Do you know why Beyond Type Run happened?
no. Do
Because
you have the
Beyond
history?
Type 1 or the Bike Beyond happened the year before. And the amount of energy that it took, months, 6 months of planning, 72 days of riding across the country, the danger that they were in was so stressful for the organization and for the people that were involved and the transportation and all of it. We really we're sitting in meetings after that was done while we're in the editing process for the documentary, realizing what if we could do something that took a day but is still very difficult. And that's where this came up. There was the opportunity. Robin from Peloton was going to run with that first group of people, and we had a small team. I want to say it was like 20 people. Of could we do this? Yes, it takes a lot of training and energy, but it's not. They're not out on the road 72 days. That's where Beyond Type Run actually came from.
That's incredible. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it was too much.
Well, I'm talking, yeah, about scaling back a little bit. I think that was a good move to, yeah,
Yeah,
not
it's a
have
lot.
Bike Beyond
It's a
going every
lot.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Because there were people that were like inspired by it and said, "Boy, I'd love to do that again next year." We're like, "Don't you dare say next year." It was just too much.
One hit wonder there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. Well, thank you for, I had no idea that that was kind of the history behind it,
Mhm.
but very cool.
Yeah.
I could keep you here all day asking questions. I love talking to you.
Yeah.
But in wrapping up, I want to give um, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of give your spiel of why you're running, why this is so important to you. And I know we've touched on it a little bit, but your kind
Yeah.
of rocky speech that you're going to shout out at the end of this when you cross the finish line. What's your motivation?
Yeah. So many of us, maybe we're told, maybe it's just an understood, maybe it's this stigma about type 1 diabetes that we think then that we can't do some of these things that we see other people doing. And it's just not true. And the amount of people that have messaged me or that I've had a chance to talk with back and forth about the inspiration that comes from somebody who is affected by or living with type 1 diabetes doing something like the New York City Marathon is showing them that yes, you can. That's the why behind this. It's on that stage in that city in front of all of those people, we're on display. That team is on display. We get an opportunity to show the world, the people that are watching, yes, you can do difficult things with type 1 diabetes, and you are not doing a bad job of managing type 1. You're doing a difficult job and you can do it. Like that's it, hands down. It can be done. You can do it. In fact, we'll show you that it can be done. I'm not, we're not setting Olympic record paces on any of this stuff. But what we are juggling and what we are managing, we get a medal for that. Like we really legitimately do get a medal. And I think it's probably one of the most inspirational things that we could do is just to show people you can do it. It can be done.
I love it. Neil, thank you again for this and this conversation, but also for being the positive force in the space, for
Thanks,
being
man.
an influence that's inspiring people by showing them that they can. And
Yeah.
again, me personally, having seen your content for so long and just the hope that it gives me that type 1 really is just it's a part of us, but it's something that we can live with and live great
Yeah.
lives with and still succeed
Yeah.
regardless of. So,
Absolutely, man. Thanks for doing this.
of course.
All right, everyone. Thank you again so much for watching. And please, please go support Neil and donate to his fundraising page. I'll have a link down in the description. I hope you enjoyed this little podcast episode and stay tuned to meet more of the team.